is there something in the environment that has changed that is significant? Today, it doesn't seem like there would be those kinds of differences, and a couple of years, typically an EIR can still be considered valid.
At the very least, it would be extremely helpful,
Yes.
and would need only some tweaks.
Some updates if there were some changes in that first year heading into a second year of the campaign. Okay, I mean, that's what I was hearing in your question. So, questions here, staff? Any more?
So just to restate this, make sure I understand this, which is very confusing. So the advantage of a citizen initiated UGB campaign, in terms of actually getting it done, is that it could, the actual wording and alignment of the UGB, et cetera, could be set in stone later in the process than if the city council were to do one.
No.
No.
The
Because
citizens initiative is going to have to start almost immediately,
almost
and it would be
immediately.
working towards setting something in stone, basically right out the gate.
Setting
You have to
something
go
in
out and get
stone
those
right out the
signatures.
gate.
So
Okay.
you have to have an ordinance that's written that sets the boundaries,
Okay,
like almost day one.
okay,
That's the challenge for a citizens group. So then they go forth to get the signatures, but by that time, in their hand is that ordinance that they're asking voters to support.
right,
So essentially, to use your term, it sort of sets it in stone, or tries to set it in stone, right out the gate.
right,
But the advantage to the citizens initiative is it doesn't have to deal with the CEQA issue at all.
so,
So in our informal conversations with some citizens who are interested in doing that, we've told them the staff will help them to whatever extent we can legally help them try and get out the gate, get going on that. There are some risks involved because the general plan isn't done.
right,
And these two need to be consistent with each other. But as I indicated, if the citizens group completes its work and takes an ordinance to the voters, and the voters approve it, that trumps the general plan. The general plan is going to have to be consistent with that if it follows it.
but the city council, the likelihood of the city council being able to do one before, in time for a November 2016 election is about Zippo.
We believe that really is a practical matter. It's impossible. We have more time issues basically than the citizens group does, or at least the same. Plus, we have to complete CEQA.
Sequence, so that there's a longer time. Okay.
Right. Plus, our planning staff is working on the new general plan through this whole time. So, right, so we're kind of, what do you say about bandwidth? We're kind of stretched there, I think, right, right.
This is for the planning director. Have you seen any indicators in the general plan process to date that indicates that there's probably going to be, a desire for any major changes to the existing UGB?
No.
Okay. So, it seems to me that with our existing UGB and Measure O, which put it in place, and what we know from the general plan process, that the writing of ordinance by a citizens group with help should be pretty straightforward. And I presume that the cost to the city, whether the city puts it on the ballot or a citizens group puts it on a ballot, is the same. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, so there's no variation in cost. So if a citizens group was able to pull this off with assistance, bypass the need to undergo CEQA. And, you know, one of the comments that was made here is it says, let's see. Well, anyway, it talks about the city not being in charge of the language of the ballot initiative, you know, the citizens group. But I think that there would probably be a pretty aligned, yeah, it says right here, let's see, and could potentially deviate from draft general plan developed in a community process or contain legally problematic provisions, as is sometimes the case with initiatives. I would assume the level of cooperation might, you know, prevent that from occurring. And then if I'm understanding you correctly, if that all fails, then we still have the option of extending our UGB, putting it in a standard election cycle and getting it done at that point.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
At that point in the 2-year cycle, so it moves from November 2016 to November 2018.
Right,
Right,
right.
right.
So, okay, well, that answers my question. I have 2 other questions that aren't related to the process, so I don't know if that's about the staff report.
Okay.
On Exhibit A, City Sebastopol Land Use Designations Map, maybe I've just never noticed it before, but there's a little island indicated in the southwest, to the southwest of the city.
Southwest.
What is it?
No, I think it's this one. You see that on the map? It's this
Do
little
we know what this little island is?
The Pleasant Hill.
Reservoir.
Henry
Pleasant
does.
Hill Reservoir.
That's our water reservoir. A reservoir.
Oh, okay, all right. All right, I was like, really? What are they, like a protectorate of Sebastopol?
Yes.
It's hard
We
to
knew we
interpret
owned
that
that
with us,
island,
right
yeah.
there, yeah.
And,
That's how the roads turn.
I was like, I want to move there, I want to secede, move to that little island. But anyway,
Okay,
I
other
think
questions?
I think that was my last, oh, I know, no, I had one more question. I know there's been discussion of annexing Village Park Mobile Home Park. Where does that fall into all these discussions?
The GPAC is recommending that the sphere be modified to include that. And a couple other properties that you'll see when you review the general plan map.
So conceivably, if a citizens initiative were to move forward, it would be in the city's interest if they included those items. Is that correct?
Yes.
That concludes my questions. Thank
Okay.
you.
That's good. So what I'd like to do now is open this for public comment, just like before. Well, it'd be helpful, how many people do want to speak on this? I'm trying to watch our time this evening. We've got Danny, a couple others. Great, well, everybody's welcome, and I think we have time for 3 minutes each. If someone's willing to go first, please do. And I think we're a little cold in here now. Maybe we can adjust the thermostat, tweak the other way. Not too high. Sorry, this happens in like every office building or whatever people share. So Denny, if you'll go first, and then if folks want to line up behind him. Welcome this evening, I'm glad you came. Denny, hi.
Hi, pardon my congestion, still recovering a little bit. My name is Denny Rossetti, Sonoma County Conservation Action Executive Director, and I live at, what's my address, Bellevue Avenue here in town. I want to thank you for taking up this issue tonight. It is rather one of these issues that's had a number of our heads kind of spinning for a while. I really appreciate the planning director and city manager's explanation. Because I spent several hours today trying to figure out how to advocate to you that modified option 1 and 2 kind of combined together in terms of like what we'd like to see happen. I don't think any of us want to, by any means, like bypass the general plan process or anything like that. But a lot of us, and we've had our canvas on the ground here in Sebastopol, they've gone door to door, talked to a number of residents, found a lot of support for their boundary concept, and you know, you've gone through your general plan process, you've gotten the grassroots citizen feedback portion completed, but we don't want to see that urban growth boundary expire either, the voter protection to it. Sebastopol is seen as a leader on the Bay Area. We were one of the first cities in the country to adopt an urban growth boundary, and we very much want to see that kind of leadership continue. I also should apologize publicly here to former Mayor Slater for spelling his name wrong on our sheet that we passed out door to door, so I apologize for that. That wasn't in my notes, but just wanted to say that. So anyhow, modified version option 1, we don't want to do something counter to what the citizens have already said they want in Sebastopol. We'd love to see the council basically take this issue up, direct staff to prepare an ordinance for you to pass as if it were going to go through with a CEQA document, essentially. The citizens could then potentially, if they chose to or inspired, pick up that ordinance, turn it into an initiative form, and run it forward. I've seen, this type of situation is not totally unprecedented. I've seen 2 other circumstances come up in the county since I've been here doing this policy work. The county in 2005 was going through its general plan process, which took 9 years. County of Sonoma, that is. And the timberland ordinance was a part of the general plan update. And we were seeing a number of vineyard conversions, forest to vineyard conversions being applied for at the county. So the county basically fast forwarded that portion of the general plan and kind of like took it on a little sidetrack over here. It didn't go to voter approval, but it's a comparative kind of example where there was an issue that was out there that was kind of important to address in a timely manner. That was part of the general plan that got taken out. The other thing I've seen a number of times is housing elements. Sometimes, housing elements required by law to be updated every 5 years in the city, something like that. And if you aren't going to finish your general plan in time, you've got to fast forward that housing element. So I think there is some other comparative example out there. We want to work with you. We want to help. The 3 other cities in the county that have renewed urban growth boundaries are Santa Rosa, Petaluma, and Healdsburg. And I will wrap up in 2 seconds. They did a very, they used their general plan process as a way to get the CEQA document needed, and then they placed the initiatives before, the measures, I should say, before the voters, and they were voter approved to continue that, continuity of voter approval for the policy. So thank you very much for picking this up, and I urge you to take action. Thank you.
Okay, good. That's our assignment tonight, is to give some direction to staff. We have a couple more speakers coming up. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you. Kathy Ottinger for First Avenue. I've been on the GPAC, and I think we did a lot of work. I hope we'll pick this issue up and study your documents and come to your opinions and possibly a vote on where you'd like that one to be, because I certainly support the planning. I was also working with the citizens from Sebastopol Tomorrow, who brought together a citizens committee to run the last ballot measure that the citizens brought forward. It is a massive undertaking. It takes a lot of volunteer time going door to door to find registered voters by name and get them to sign. You can't just stand out in front of the grocery store, although I understand people that have their cell phones and can ask people their address to make sure they live within the city boundaries, so maybe that's an easier way to go about it. But it is a lot of work. If this is something that the city can move forward with, I do believe a number of citizens will come together, and it won't be me, but together that group can decide how to proceed. And I think that between your planning commission, your design review board, your arts council, your GPAC members, and people from each of the neighborhoods in the community can reach out to their neighbors and do this fairly quickly. I think the biggest challenge is to come up with all the correct legal language without the cost of citizens paying for an attorney to do this. It was very expensive the last time we did it. Greenbelt Alliance was very helpful with their attorneys and talking about what was appropriate for voters to hear when they looked at the measure before they signed, and what was important for cities to campaign on the next time they ran for office. So there are a lot of issues besides just what the city wants to do. We also need to consider what the rest of the county is doing so that we're not moving off in another direction. And that work is monumental. So if the city could proceed with that, with your expertise and your staff time, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think maybe you guys in the back might want to come a little closer so people see you. Hi, Jane. We're forming a line behind you. No, we're good. Go
I
ahead.
wasn't looking, sorry. Jane Nielsen, I live on Burnside Road. I work with, I could name off 5 or 6 organizations, including SCCA, Preserve Rural Sonoma County, Sebastopol Water Information Group, and the Water Coalition, and every one of those groups is concerned to make sure we preserve our green belts because it has, it's important for water supply, and trees are important for water supply, and preserving the green belts preserves trees too. One of the things to be concerned about is that the way the green belt initiative in the county is set up is that the green belts rely on there being UGBs legally. The county has decided to go ahead with an initiative, try to get it on the 2016 ballot, but it's not guaranteed that they're going to make it. So I think it's extremely important that the city of Sebastopol work to maintain its UGB. However you can do that in anticipation that the county might miss its deadline because that staff is overworked too. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Ed Thompson. I'm a relative newcomer to Sebastopol. I live on Takini Street up in Belmont Terrace and within the urban growth boundary, although I happen to live 1 lot away from the city limit, so I'm technically not a resident. I hope you won't hold that against me. I'm eager to get involved in land use affairs here in town and moved here precisely because Sonoma County has such a robust set of land use policies that preserve farmland and open space. I also happen to be the state director for a national conservation group called American Farmland Trust, and that is our business. So I just wanted to volunteer our help in making this happen in the sense that there is a broad consensus for renewing the urban growth boundaries that have helped make this place so special. I wanted to add our voice to those others who are urging you to act forthwith on that. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks.
Hi, I'm Jay Schaefer again.
Welcome back.
And I just double dipping to say, I don't have too much to say on this issue precisely, but I do have a lot of basically efficient design of housing and site plans for housing and whatnot is my, it's essentially my affinity therapy, kind of high on the ASPE scale, so I eat, breathe, sleep this stuff. I just want to offer that I would bend over backwards within the bounds of integrity to help out with whatever it takes to preserve the green belt. And I think that's easily done with efficient design. And I know that the trailer park over here has been in question. And I would just love to see some very quality, efficient housing somewhere in this town. And that's possible because efficiency does actually include, when you get right down to it, affordability, just efficient use of materials and life energy in general. That's all I really want to say. Is what
Thank you for adding that. We have another speaker, and anybody else who'd like to speak, you're welcome to form the line. Hi.
Hi,
Welcome.
good evening. Thank you. Sarah Fain, Program Director with Greenbelt Alliance. We are an organization that's worked for almost 60 years to help shape the rules that govern growth throughout the Bay Area. I really want to thank you for putting this on the agenda, having this conversation, and showing such willingness to make sure that we're protecting the UGB. UGBs, both in Sebastopol, throughout Sonoma County, throughout the Bay Area, and nationally have been an incredible tool to help make sure that we are maintaining great cities and towns, and we're protecting those open space and natural and agricultural lands that provide such great economic and environmental resources to us. So thank you. In this room, we're all saying, we want to keep doing this. This has worked for Sebastopol. The question is, how do we do it? I'd like to echo some of what Denny said, that we don't want to lose any momentum on this. We are concerned that if these do expire, even though there has not been a huge push to move this, that's in part because of the existing voter protections. It was mentioned in the planning director's memo that serves as a disincentive. And when you remove that, that's a concern for us about what could be the potential implications for that. In terms of council-initiated ordinance that would not be voter approved, that could be a really great thing to show how important the UGB is to you. Of course, this council can't bind future councils. You can't even bind your own decisions, future decisions. So we would rely on that commitment that you are showing. So the idea that a citizens initiative could be supported as much as possible by this council and by your staff, I think could be a really successful thing and would be very much supported by the voters of Sebastopol. And we are going to continue to engage on this issue. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming out tonight. Colleen? I'm just checking, Marty, other people standing in the back, are you guys wanting to speak? Okay. You may be our last, let's see. Anyone else, please let me know.
So my hats off to the Greenbelt Alliance people and supporters who for years helped preserve that when I didn't even pay attention to how those things are kept that way. Coming from Los Angeles 32 years ago and then living here, I appreciate that. But then since I jumped in to this sphere of the political world and how you keep it this way, I know that you are constrained on where your power lies at the end of our city limits. However, your sphere of influence is not quite so constrained. So every chance that you have to help define more clearly what these green belts are like, because everyone knows we're oversaturated with wine grapes. So when we hear these comments of, oh, well, at least it's not housing, you know, when it talks about what's in that green belt, or are we talking about wild land that, you know, the habitat can thrive in because it's undeveloped? You know, or are we talking about more wine grapes that are sucking up that water in the most part if they aren't being dry farmed and creating subsidence? So we need to have some broader balance of what ag land is going to look like within these green belts as well. You know, so rolling mills with some sheep, you know, providing fiber and other materials like that for us, other types of agriculture. So how can we partner with those ideas with what we're putting in the spaces? And, you know, what are the areas that we could use? I'm not an advocate of recycled water, but it's here. So where are the areas that we could use that to help keep things irrigated so that they, you know, perhaps another type of industry in agriculture could thrive that is not the risk when it comes from the edible agriculture, but we're talking about trees, bamboo, you know, things that we could then use for building materials right here. How can we keep what we need to grow and build produced here? So talk about go local, well, you know, I want to see that agriculture chain smaller in this county so that our water is not being exported with every case of wine that's leaving this county. So hopefully you can find ways to not just advocate, but maintain it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those remarks. Last call for any comments from people who are here this evening. Seeing no one come forward, I'll bring this back to the council and see where our discussion goes. I think I wanted to say this as a starting comment. Our history here is that we had a citizens initiative, so for me it's really important that this be a vote by the citizens again, so that the electorate is making this determination. And I think a citizens-driven initiative at this time for working towards November 2016 with the support that our city manager has indicated is possible and legal. We could, I'm really confident we could be successful as a community and have our electorate pass an urban growth boundary. Other comments from council members? Councilmember Eater?
This is directed to city attorney. I just need clarification. I got a sense that there's a nuance that somehow a voter-sponsored initiative has more weight or is more long-standing, or I'm not sure what the right term is, but in other words, it's more sacrosanct maybe than a council-initiated initiative, or is there any truth to that? Are they equivalent?
Both, I think basically they're equivalent because both initiatives could say it cannot be changed except by a vote of the people. So you could do that in either type of initiative. Again, the major difference, just to reiterate, though, a council-sponsored initiative is much more difficult at this time because of the CEQA clearance needed.
Correct, I understand.
Otherwise,
Okay.
they can arrive at the same
They
destination.
can be equivalent in terms of their enforceability.
Yes.
Okay, so without seeming like I'm jumping ahead here, and to me, it seems like a pretty clear path. It seems like if this, and the only reason I'm saying all this is so clear up any misperceptions on my part, but if the city were to engage with a citizens group for a citizen-sponsored initiative, and it worked, we're done. We avoid CEQA. If for some reason that process doesn't work, the city has the availability as kind of plan B to extend the UGB and then put their own initiative forward in a standard election cycle election. Is that correct?
That's correct, with the advantage that the general plan's EIR will have been done by then, and it can be
Okay,
relied
sure.
on,
Yeah,
so we don't
yeah.
have to duplicate that work.
But is that basic process correct, laid out correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd just like to state for the record, of course, we're not trying to avoid CEQA one way or the other. Whatever happens here is
Did I
going to
say
get
that?
a
Sorry.
full environmental
I missed it.
review one way or the other.
Yeah, I misspoke.
Okay. That's a good summary. Yeah. Okay, other comments? Councilmember Slinger, Vice Mayor Glass, you ready? Okay.
Well, I certainly think that this course of action that's being described makes a lot of sense to me. I think it is clear from what the audience has said that this is going to involve a lot of work on the part of our community if we are to move forward with this citizen initiative. I have one other question, and that's in response to what Ms. Payne said from Greenbelt. Should we move forward with, it is like the next course of action for our council to kind of draft we'll actually have staff draft a proposed ordinance if we were to renew it, and then see if a citizens group takes that up? Is that kind of the next thing we do?
More or less, our approach is going to be to assume that we are a little unclear right now whether we'll be doing a council-sponsored initiative or a citizens initiative. We're going to be preparing an ordinance that we think would be workable and would be the end result that we want to give to the voters. And then assuming that things remain the same and we really don't have the time to pull off a council-sponsored initiative, then I think we could make our materials available to the citizens group that would carry them forward.
Okay,
Step
thank you.
one for us is going to be to draft what we think is an appropriate ordinance
Right.
that would go to the voters.
Okay, sounds good.
So I want to check on that timeline because I think there are potential difficulties there. It's our first meeting in January to ask staff to do this. I think we would be fortunate if it came back at our first meeting in February, sort of the fastest perhaps. And I'm not even sure that's possible, but it's not coming back the next meeting in January. We know we don't have time for that. The council would, I think, review that at the public meeting. Is that correct?
I think that the planning director and I are going to have a discussion about that, so I'm not sure we're prepared tonight to tell you exactly when we would be
Okay.
bringing it back, but I think we could have that information for the agenda setting committee by next Tuesday.
Okay, so where I was going with that is that if it's going to take staff and the council a month to get that language together, assuming council review is required, Then we've taken time in the election cycle, I'm looking at our election clerk going, okay, then it becomes late February or March where there's a lot of work to do between March and August.
To summarize the conversations I've had with our city clerk, I think what it's going to come down to basically is how much time does a citizens group have really to get those signatures? And if the timing challenges here mean they may not have as much time as the statutes would allow them because they don't have the product yet. So that's the challenge that they're going to face, I think, is getting the signatures within a somewhat more constrained time period. That's why we were also thinking of Plan B, just in case that couldn't be pulled off. But we'll do everything we can to try and produce the product as fast as we can.
Right, I mean, we wish we had, 6 more months or something, but we don't. So I just want to point out, in Plan A, we're difficult. Councilmember
How many
Slater, yeah.
signatures are required?
It's 10%
Of the,
of the total of the registered voters, and right now that number is 4,700. Its total voters should be 470 signatures. Can I just explain the process really quick in my
I think that'd be really helpful, particularly for people who have volunteered to support this citizen effort who are here tonight.
So as the city manager stated, a lot of it depends on when that initiative comes to the city clerk. So once I receive it, we have 15 days from that date to do the title and summary. Then the citizens group has to go get that published. Before they can even get signatures, the city clerk has to have an affidavit from the newspaper that says that that was actually published. So your time limit begins shrinking. So after that, you have the citizen groups have 180 days to get signatures. But to become on an August ballot, on a November ballot, the county's gonna have to verify that. They get 30 days to verify that. Then it has to come back to the city clerk, then it has to go on a city council agenda. So your 180 days for signature is getting reduced by months. So that was our concern about the shrinking the timing for the signatures.
Everything Mary said, of course, is correct, but we generally don't take 15 days to provide a ballot title. In summary, we generally take like 2 days. So, we can do everything we can do to facilitate this, but to me, the major challenge is going to be to draft an acceptable ordinance.
Okay, sounds like a lot of work to do. Any other questions or comments?
well, a couple of comments. The timeframe just seems so compressed to me that I think at this point I would be leaning a little bit more towards allowing the existing UGB to run its course, do a council resolution to extend it, and take up the vote, which, whether it is council-sponsored or citizen-sponsored, either one of those, it's a vote of the people and it carries the same weight. What doesn't carry the same weight is when it's in that limbo point of it's a council ordinance. That's where the weakness comes in. And we've had some terms here that have been, I think, cross-pollinated, using citizen in a couple of different ways. So I think for almost assured success of extending the time frame, that seems like a reasonable thing to me. However, if the will of the council and staff, our incredibly hardworking staff, says that they can provide the assistance in a timely manner, and our citizens are willing to take up the torch and run with it, I'm on board completely. I think that would be great. Like Councilmember Reeder said, if we can knock it out, it's knocked out, it's done, and we're protected. And I think that the comment that was made about the members of the GPAC, the members of the Planning Commission, all our boards, us, everybody in this room, we all live in different neighborhoods. We can all knock on our neighbors' doors with relative ease. having gone around and knocked on strangers' doors, that's a lot more difficult. Or if you're knocking on somebody's door that you know, it becomes a lot easier. So there needs to be a significant mobilization rapidly.
Okay, so I want to check with our city clerk and city manager. For this item, do we need a motion to direct staff? Is that what you're seeking?
We need to have a clear consensus of what the council wants us to do. Don't necessarily need to make a motion, but as long as we have a sense of the council.
Okay, I would summarize. Are you ready to summarize?
Well, if that's the case, because I was ready to make a motion, but I'll just say, this is not a motion. Well, you said we don't need one, right?
You can make one of
I
the.
made
You
a
can
motion.
go ahead and make a motion.
But then I'll make a motion that the city council directs staff to engage with citizens group to craft a ballot initiative, to reestablish our UGB, or, to establish our UGB and sphere of influence, and offer all help within staff's capability and within the legal framework to do so. And in the event that that would fail, that the city council would place an extension of our UGB, would enact an extension of our UGB for voting on a future election. I don't know if that's specific enough.
Okay.
Because that would be called Plan UGB.
That's good. That's good. All right, so I'm just going to check with our city attorney. Is that adequate language?
I believe it is.
Okay, great. All righty. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by the vice mayor. Any further discussion? I think this is the best course of action. I think what we have is Plan A. We're going to prevail on that with the citizens group. We're going to help in the ways we can individually. We're going to ask all of you to help with great energy and speed. And hopefully the result will be this is confirmed November 2016. And our backup plan is a good one, if we have to. Okay, so I'm in favor. All those in favor? Any comments? I'm sorry. Further comments?
No, I was just doing a quick calculation.
Of how many signatures we have to get?
No, our esteemed city clerk provided that.
No, I was dividing it up. We got 5 people here.
I added up all that, so we have about 33 people on those boards and the GPAC. And that turns into slightly less than 20 signatures per person to get to 500.
And we probably need a little extra because of
We
the,
need padding, but
what do you call it,
that's
verified.
that's the number that it starts to look like for each person, so that seems reasonable.
Mhm.
Maybe we could give each signatory a free box of Girl Scout cookies or something.
Okay. Any other comments?
No.
All right, that's good. Do the math. So then, if we're ready, all those in favor of, oh, wait a minute, did we get a second on that motion? Yes, we got you. Okay, so we're good. I think I'm about needing a break here. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. So I'll check. My goal was to have us get through the Greenbelt next item as well before we take a break. This is taking a little longer than I anticipated. Do you guys want a break now, or can we move on to that?
Let's take care of it.
Let's take care of it, because these are related, and we did have a number of public remarks that were Greenbelt related, so I'm sure those have been recorded by all of us and other members of the audience. So this is item number 9. It is discussion and consideration of a letter of support to the Board of Supervisors protecting the county's green belts and communities with community separators. And our city manager is going to do the staff report.
I think you've all, this is a related item. I think you've all seen the email that we received from Terry Shore, the Greenbelt Alliance, asking this council's support in crafting a letter to the County Board of Supervisors, which relates to action that the Board of Supervisors took, I believe it was on December 15th, when it unanimously took action to renew voter protection from the county community separators with a ballot measure before they expire in 2016, and to consider and implement additional community separator designations through a concurrent general plan amendment public process. This council's been asked to craft a letter that supports that, but which letter would also express the city's concern about the proposed policy to tie the expiration of voter protections for county community separators to each of the city's urban growth boundaries. The letter says doing so would allow developers to take advantage of the lapse in voter protections to convince a majority of supervisors to allow projects and community separators which would otherwise need to go to a vote. So I believe representatives here this evening, including Sarah Fain, who spoke earlier, to perhaps elaborate a bit more about this, but you're being asked to do the letter that I basically summarized to the County Board of Supervisors. The materials in your packet are the PowerPoint that was given to the Board of Supervisors on December 15th, and other information relating to these community separators, including maps. So that's a short summary of what the council is being asked to do. I think you might ask someone from Greenbelt Alliance to further explain their request.
Okay, Sarah, there you are, thank you. If you can come forward and offer to us what Terry got us started on. Thanks, I'm glad you're here tonight.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity, and Terry does send her regrets that she couldn't be here in person. I'm sure you'll see her again in the future. Community separators, it's really nice that we have these two agenda items right next to each other, because in a way the community separators are the county's yin to the city's UGBs, and we need both. Community separators are a really great way that we've been able to continue to protect our natural and agricultural lands from development and keep Sonoma County a great place to live. So this city has really shown its leadership on keeping our cities great. We would love for you to show the county that you are on board as a city, that you see this as a valuable tool to complement your UGB. So what we're asking today is to support having the County of Sonoma renew and potentially expand these community separators on a county level, which would be put on the ballot in November 2016. In terms of separating the UGBs from community separators, I think that we've seen just in the last agenda item what the concern could be, that through no fault of the city, there may be, well, we hope it won't be. We hope there will be a citizens initiative, but there could be a possibility that in certain cities the UGBs lapse, and then that has an effect on the community separators. If the voters of the county say we want to support community separators, then the citizens of the county should be able to count on having those community separators in place regardless of what the cities do. So I hope that today you will pass sending this letter to the county to show them that there is broad support. We have found, not just in Sebastopol, but in many other cities throughout the county, that there is broad voter support for community separators, for renewing and expanding community separators in November 2016 ballot. Also, Denny is here from SCCA, and so if I want to give him an opportunity as well, if he has anything to add on the value of community separators and what we'd like Sebastopol to do.
Okay, we have Greenbelt Alliance here representing our kind of applicant, so to speak, and I'm wondering, Denny, if you have supportive comments or if you want to give yours in public comment?
It's up to you.
Okay, I think it'd be helpful just to hold that for public comment if we can. And I want to check just procedurally, is it okay for me to ask a question? Thinking of this person as...
Yes, she's
okay.
made, her group has made the request.
Great. And I just don't want to confuse our audience by having a dialogue here. This is a little different from just public comment because you are a requesting party. So I was very interested to see in the map, our community separators are to the east. And we don't have anything like, I'm going to say, from the Day Dairy wrapping around up beyond Occidental. And we don't have anything in the south. And
So the recommendations that Greenbelt Alliance have made are included in your packet. I actually don't have those materials printed out in
Okay.
front of me, but it identifies where we're looking geographically to protect.
Well, I mean, that's how I read them. Maybe you and I can talk about this separately outside of this meeting, because I'm wondering, how do we get those in play? Would the Greenbelt Alliance map be part of the November 2016 election? Oh, Denny's gonna come and straighten this out. After all.
Okay. So, yeah, what's in the map, what's in the packet are Greenbelt Alliance's maps. These are not
Right.
necessarily, let's see, what am I looking at right here? Priority green belts for expanding community separators. Okay. So, if you look at, it's not, doesn't have a page number.
It's the first colored map, and then the second,
Yes.
and then the flip side of that.
So, there are places that we have identified that could be for expansion of the community separators, meaning that the areas that densities are not allowed to change would be expanded. So sometimes that's confusing to say community separators are expanding. It's not. It's the opposite of, say, a UGB expanding. Is that clear? So in terms of what you see on this map, is that this is where the county has identified what they're calling priority green belts, and here are some opportunities for Sonoma County to expand these community separators.
Right, and I don't see any to our north, and I don't see anything to our south. And I think this community might be interested in protecting those areas.
And we would love to hear that. We have worked with a number of people throughout the county to identify what are those additional lands that aren't protected. This is, I don't know that this is an opportunity tonight to potentially do that, but we could absolutely come and sit down with you with maps and look at what are the opportunities and what is the benefit from those community separators. Why are those lands important? What does the county gain by protecting those lands?
Mhm. Well, I think that's going to be a valuable future conversation. I think because of the election timeline, we don't have time to get into that addition. So let me see, does anyone else have questions for Sarah while she's at the mic? Okay, so thank you. Stay nearby.
Thank you,
All right. And let's open this for public comment and see if anybody would like to come forward on this issue. This is item number 9. This is the discussion of a letter to the Board of Supervisors in support of our green belts. Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
It's a related comment. When I was working on the General Plan Advisory Committee, I promoted language that said to work on green belts outside the UGB of the city. So in terms of it being a referral area, I think that's where it is in our own general plan, and not sure what that language is. I'll have to check it, or you can look at it when we're reviewing. But it occurred to me that originally when we put in the UGBs, the idea was to look beyond them and create a greenbelt referral area around town where we would want only certain kinds of development, certainly less than other places and certain types, and that we would want the county to respect that line for us. And so that would be a little negotiation with the county, but that seemed like the next step. And that hasn't been accomplished in our recent general plan, but I'm hoping that we'll take a look at where that is and the timeline for the next one when we start.
Okay, let's see, other comments. We've got Danny coming up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Denny Rossetti, Sonoma County Conservation Action Executive Director. And I remember where I live, 7510 Bellevue Avenue.
We knew we could find you.
Up there, you know. I kept spelling words backwards, so I was like, maybe I should just only speak anagrams, but don't they call anagrams?
Focus.
Focus, yes, thank you. We've spent hundreds of hours on this policy over the last year and a half. Actually, it goes back about 3 years. We started talking about what are we going to do when the community separator policy expires. It's not the strongest policy in the world. It was designed to be a companion policy and an incentive policy from the county to urge and give cities the comfort in passing urban growth boundaries so that the county wouldn't just like, kind of hop on the other side of the boundary and issue permits for development. And it's actually, in our reflection and our analysis, it's done a pretty good job of protecting these areas that are designated. It is not all the land around your city. It is just specific parcels that they chose that basically were non-controversial for the most part. We've gotten the county to a point where they've given a strong indicator they are going to put this on the ballot for renewal in the fall for the voters. This is part of a suite of policies that Bill Corden referred to as the voters' green mandate in Sonoma County, smart train, open space district, urban growth boundaries, things that were presented to voters, that environmental initiatives and green space initiatives that voters came out and said, yes, we support this, right? This policy, as Sarah pointed out, has some issues that we're a little bit concerned about in terms of what they proposed right now, and I'm so glad that your letter points those out with the UGB issue and the delinking. Delinking is good in many ways because it allows us to say, what about Forestville? What about great cities to the north and kind of west of Sebastopol that they're not necessarily being separated from other cities, but they're little towns, right? There's a lot of potential for those areas between those towns to be have pressure for development. So thank you for your letter. I wish we'd asked a year ago. The other thing is sunset. We're talking, the county's given some indicators that are open to talking about the sunset. It's a 20-year sunset. That's what's expiring in 2016 from 1996. And we're hoping to see a 30 or even 50-year. So we're very excited to put that language in the letter. And if there's any discussions that y'all would like to have, Sherry Sherman was able to be here. Of course, has all this in her head because she's been kind of focused on this nonstop. And there's a lot of potential for expansion. The county's been very resistant to that because of the timing issues, having to notify property owners and PRMVs overwhelmed, et cetera. But there is a phase 2 that's coming up, proposed at least, that will pass this base policy. And phase 2 will be what are the new lands that we're looking at to expand to. That's the proposal that's out there right now. So if you have ideas on parcels, people that have farms that might live in those zones that are concerning, we can inject that type of thinking.
Good, thank you. Any other speakers on this item? You're welcome to come forward. I'm not seeing anybody, so I think we've got all comments. All righty, so I'll bring this back to the council. I appreciate our speakers helping me understand sort of where we are and also phase 2. That's a good one for us to know about, I think. So individually, as a council member and being the person who signed the letter, I'm very much in favor of doing so. Are there comments from other council members?
I will like to move that we approve the mayor's signature on this letter supporting the Greenbelt Alliance.
I will second that motion.
Seconded by the vice mayor. Any other conversation? I'm anticipating that our city clerk may have already prepared this for signature. Okay, all right, and I'm not going to suggest revisions. Okay. No, that was just a formatting thing. I just wanted to look really readable. I want to make sure the board of supervisors get this, but we can all contact them individually and sort of hammer the message home. Please do this. We support it. So if there's no other discussion, then I would call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, that will carry a 4-0 vote, and we'll take a break until 9:30.
Disappear, but I don't want to interrupt your.
Oh, no, yeah, we're done.
Thank you.
These two alternate.